Tonight, we are continuing to cover a case that is stunning Metro Detroit. 3 children rescued from squalid conditions. Their mother now under arrest. Thank you so much for joining us for 7 News Detroit at 11. I'm Whitney Burney. Their mother allegedly abandoning the children in 2020 or 2021, leaving a 15-year-old boy, 13-year-old girl, and a 12-year-old girl, only leaving food once a week. Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard saying, quote, "This situation would be deemed deplorable and intolerable for an animal, and it is utterly unacceptable for 3 children." 7 News Detroit reporter Tierra Braddock spoke to Sheriff Bouchard today, as well as a neighbor reacting to the chilling revelations. We do want to warn you, some of the details of this story are very disturbing.
Just a few days ago, Oakland County Sheriff deputies came to this house behind me to do a welfare check on a woman. But when they got inside, they didn't find her, but they did discover her 3 kids who had been abandoned, living in deplorable conditions.
Everybody's upset about it, like, oh my God, this is right in our neighborhood. How could something like this happen?
Pontiac resident Emma Gross lives a few streets over from the home where the kids were found. The Oakland County Sheriff's Office says the house was covered in piles of trash as high as 4 feet in some rooms. There was even mold and human feces throughout the house.
It's pretty heartbreaking that the kids would have to live under those conditions.
Sheriff Michael Bouchard tells me a 15-year-old boy and his 2 sisters, ages 12 and 13, hadn't been outside the home in years and were surviving off of weekly drop-offs of prepared food.
It kind of reminds me of the commercials you see where animals are living in very deplorable conditions. Well, kind of take that times 10, and that's what the kids were living in for years.
The boy told deputies that his mother abandoned them back in either 2020 or 2021. Deputies were recently called because the landlord of the home asked for them to do a welfare check.
The landlord said he hadn't seen her for some time, and I think, as our detectives mentioned, that hadn't paid her rent going back to October.
The kid's mother was arrested on Friday, and Bouchard says she had been living somewhere else in Pontiac. The kids hadn't been in school since they were abandoned.
Well, that's going to be a very long process to figure this all out. Not just how they are, both mentally and physically, but how did this ever happen, to have these kids fall through the cracks on so many levels with relatives, the community, and with schools.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
I've seen, child neglect and other situations where they're living in bad places, but not to this level and not for this extended duration.
The mother will be facing criminal charges, and in the meantime, her kids are now staying with a relative.
Wow, this is horrendous. Like to say, Kolo Yimla Yahaba Shim Yashab Bashim Kakadash, double honor to the apostles Elsgrim Millstone, peace, citation, hope for elect, Shalom. And as you can see, from the video that was brought out, this happened in Detroit, and it was of course a typical black woman for you. Nothing surprising. This is what Eve does, especially from the Southern Kingdom. They have children, leave them, abandon them, just to pretty much do whatever they want to do in their life, like partying and bullshitting, hanging out. And this is the typical common, reckless act that you ever see coming from the so-called black woman. It says in the title of Fox 2 Detroit, it says, Pontiac mother to be arraigned on child abuse charges after children found alone in deplorable conditions. And this is February 20th, 2025, 8:16 a.m. It says, Kelly Bryant is expected to be arraigned on child abuse charges Thursday after her 3 children were found living alone in a filthy Pontiac home. One of the children told authorities that she had abandoned them 4 or 5 years ago. The children were found after the landlord called for a welfare check. The mother accused of leaving her children alone to live in squalor is expected to be arraigned on child abuse charges Thursday. Kelly Marie Bryant, 34 years old, was charged this week with 3 counts of first-degree child abuse after her 3 children were found alone in a filthy Pontiac home last week. The backstory: authorities discovered Bryant's children were 15, 13, and 12 after the landlord called for a welfare check Friday at a home she was renting on Lydia Lane. He said he hadn't heard from Bryant since December and said and she hadn't paid rent since October. When authorities made their way into the condo, they found the 3 children living among filth. According to the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, the children said they were left alone at home in 2020 or 2021. Bryant was apparently dropping off food every so often. The situation would be deemed deplorable and intolerable for an animal, and it is utterly unacceptable for 3 children. They have been deprived of any interaction with their mother and have not received an education for years. Sheriff Mike Bouchard said Kelly Bryant's former sister-in-law, Charlene Bryant, called what was going on inside the home horrendous. She said that the last she heard, the children were living with their grandmother but hadn't seen Kelly in years. I'm kind of shocked. It's this horrific, she said. I'm devastated. See, but for the most part, let me see. I'll just continue on. It says, dig deeper. Warning, the details of the story are disturbing. It says when deputies arrived at the home, they found it full of garbage, piled as high as 4 feet in some rooms. The rooms were also covered in mold and human waste. The toilet was overflowing and the bathtub was full of feces. The boy, the oldest of the siblings, said they lived in the home with their mother, but that she abandoned them in either 2020 or 2021, at least 4 years ago, when the children would have been 11, 9, and 8. The children survived on food that was dropped off on the porch each week by either mother or a stranger, but they had no access to toilet paper or personal hygiene items. The sheriff said that they were unfamiliar with personal hygiene and didn't even know how to flush a toilet. They had also not attended school since she left them. Instead, passed time watching TV or playing games. The sheriff said the girls had not been outside in several years. The boys slept on the mattress on the floor, but the girls slept on pizza boxes. According to the deputies, neighbors were unaware that children lived in the home and had never seen them. They said they had seen their mother at the home each month. The kids were all wearing soiled clothing with matted hair and toenails so long that it was difficult to walk. Oh my God. So yeah, this shows you how, disgusting the black woman is, and so of course, when it's coming to in the video itself, they have to blur out some of the images because this shit was so disturbing, and I don't even want to bring out pictures of of what was shown in the articles and even what was shown on the Google images and things of that nature, because it's like that shit is just so nasty. You wouldn't even want to look at it a second time if you come across it. And it's just so horrible to see that how the so-called black woman could be this careless. And of course it's not all of them, but it's just it's a lot of them in America that's moves like this, or at least in first world countries for the most part, because when they get those privileges and they get that benefits that coming from the government, especially when they can't have a man in the house to have those benefits, they're gonna feel like this is what they need in their life, and they feel like they don't need a man, so they're just gonna go along with getting the government benefits. And you see, usually when you receive welfare, they will definitely have to do let's say some investigations at some points of times throughout the year, seeing how the housing conditions are, how the landlord is keeping the house or the apartment. You got Section 8 people that pretty much come around to do their investigation of how the environment is looking. And when you keep the environment in such a condition like that, especially with having kids that young, you are in no shape or fashion of being deemed worthy as a parent, because at that point your kid should be taken away from you. And I mean, at least if those kids reach a certain age, especially in middle school years, I would have definitely had reached out to somebody, because I couldn't have handled the stench of that environment. But I guess they were so used to it. But it's just so horrible. You know, and that's crazy that their toenails grown so and their fingernails grown so long they weren't even able to walk. That's just wild. I didn't even know the description was that horrific. Like, and their clothes were soiled and they had matted hair. That is so horrible. And even the so-called white man in the video, with that Edomite, you know, the sheriff, even he had some compassion towards the situation, and that's just so fucked up that how even Esau, the devil, he's more compassionate in certain cases than Eve is towards her own children. And honestly, they need to convict this bitch and make sure that she suffers a long sentence in prison, because, you know, how can you have your kids living in such a condition like that and then think to yourself, oh, because you're dropping off food, you know, every so often, like, you know, they're surviving, but look at the condition you having them living in. And that's further proof showing you that a woman really can't do it on her own in terms of raising children. They think they could do it, but they really can't. Because even if they, let's say, didn't have like a effed up place such as to that extent, you know, they would still like psychologically mess up their kids in the head. You know what I mean? They'll put those kids through a psychological hell in a sense. Because one thing about Eve is that when it's coming to our woman, they don't like holding any responsibility. They don't like to reflect. So the first thing they do is, you know, they deflect all their insecurities and all of their trauma and shift it on the children that they have. You know, and this is the thing about our woman. They don't have, and women in general just don't have control over their emotions. You know, that's why they need a man of understanding to be able to guide them, to be able to mentor them and, you know, advise them on how to be. You know, they need to be coached, and a woman can't handle, you know, pressure as a man could. And if I'm not mistaken, I was further researching about the articles and stuff, and I've seen that the father left, you know, and then eventually the mother decided to, you know, leave as well when she was left with that responsibility of raising the kids. It's really insane. But I'm gonna bring out some scripture. Lord will let make this less edifying. It says, Lamentations 4 and verse 3. Even the sea monsters draw out the breast, they give suck to their young ones. The daughter of my peoples become cruel like the ostriches in the wilderness. And right, this proves you right there to how careless these women are. You know, like ostriches in the wilderness. They just will just leave their young ones out, neglect them, you know, just to live a better life. You know, it's all about them. They don't do it for helping out their children to become, you know, better people. They don't care about like looking out for their kids. So this is the shit that they are accustomed to doing. It's crazy how even a sea monster like Leviathan will even be caring to their young ones. You know, sea monsters are known for causing, you know, a lot of havoc in the oceans. You know, they have the strength to cause ships to sink, cause whirlpools, cause all types of, you know, disasters in the oceans. But they still are compassionate to their young ones. And then our women, you know, they're just completely reckless and careless. And what they're good for is passing on psychological trauma, you know, to their vulnerable children. Because of course, when you're a kid at some age, you know, soaking up information, learning, and growing at the same time and developing, you know, you're gonna be pretty much in a vulnerable state, in the sense that now you have to rely on your mother, which a lot of cases the father's not around, so you gotta rely on the mother to pretty much guide you and nurture you and help you to, you know, grow into the adult that you were destined to be. And these women are gonna fail. Don't get me wrong, like some women did some sort of a good job in a sense compared to others, but it's still not good enough in a way, because if the father was around, and let's just say a father, like a man with understanding, was around, it wouldn't be as bad, because at least the father's there to, apply discipline to the children, and the mother will be there to do her part and support and being supportive. In the 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 6, it says, "But she that liveth in pleasure is dead while she liveth." Yeah. And that's the irony of basically being a person that is completely nonchalant and careless of their actions, living out their life, trying to get abroad, trying to do, what comes to their mind. You see, this is the stuff that Esau creates. This is the issue that he creates. And they know this, kicking the man out the house, give the woman all the benefits, and then destroy the whole family there. This is the shit that Esau does. And this is just further an excuse as to why Esau has to bring the ACS now to separate the family. You see? These are the issues that he causes. It all stems from the government, starting the the women's liberation in the 1980s and so, with that welfare system. See, this is the shit that started giving women the, opportunity to now realize that, they don't need a man no more. So now they can rely on the government to support their families, which is the children that the man left off. And a lot of times men usually leave because they don't want to be held responsible for the damage that the mother is doing, and they're just tired of the hassle dealing with a belligerent, aggressive woman that don't want to take heed to her husband. See? And what a woman don't understand, when you out there living all your lustful desires and pleasures and things of that nature, and you're not living righteously, you are dead inside. That's pretty much the reason why you can't clean off that stench that you have, because ultimately you don't have no good hygiene, and you get with all these men, you lay up with all these men, and you think to yourself that you're like a man, so or you're better than men, so that creates that prideful mentality that you have. And then from there on, you got punk ass simps that condone your wicked behavior, and that pretty much gives you the justification to think that whatever you're doing is completely fine. And what you stupid ass women don't realize, and what ultimately fail to realize, is that you're going to be held accountable for all your wicked actions and all your wicked deeds. Yep. And you ain't gonna blame nobody else but your damn self in that point, because, come on, we're talking about leaving kids in the house, not even for a month or so, for years. And honestly, I don't know which one is worse, the Spanish bitch that left her kid in the home for about a week and a few days, or this bitch actually left her kid in the home for years. And like I said, those kids, to a degree, they were older enough, but the other woman that left her kid in the home for about, a couple days, like a week and some change, she, that kid was like an infant. But this woman now, I'm talking about so-called black woman, she's, she had 3 kids, and they were about a decent age to where they could pretty much go outside the house and even, try to let some neighbors know the house condition, that if they could receive some help or so. You know what I mean? Because at that point, just saying ACS has to be involved, and at that point, even though it's fucked up as it already is with ACS or so, like something has to be involved to kind of get those kids out that condition. And it is a real fucked up thing that ACS is that type of that ACS will be like a government organization that's meant to separate the kids from the families. And usually what it is like they put kids in all type of homes, and they just only there to do it, like, the parents, whoever take them in, they're just doing it for the money a lot of times. So they might even be just as wicked, or probably even worse in some cases. And let me bring out this precept right here, starting at Job 29th chapter, verse 12. It says, "Wilt thou believe him, that he will bring home thy seed and gather it to thy barn? Gavest thou the goodly wings unto the peacocks, or wings and feathers unto the ostrich, which leaveth her eggs in the earth, and warmeth them in dust, and forgetteth that the foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them? She is hardened against the young ones, as though they were not hers. Her labors in vain without fear, because Yahweh hath deprived her of wisdom, neither have he imparted to her understanding." And being deprived of that wisdom, the imparting that they received is pretty much from feminism, and the only understanding of how to be an independent, career-seeking, boss bitch woman. That's what all these, women are trying to think like. They're trying to think on that level. And if they even have kids, it's only meant for, government benefits, for financial advantage. So it's not like they care about having kids and actually nurturing them and raising them to become, the best version of themselves. And a woman don't really understand that that's really her strength. Like, as a woman, your strength is meant to raise the family, raising children, cooking and cleaning. That's your element right there. And you women can't even do that. And I'm gonna bring out these last two precepts. Let me see. It says from Proverbs chapter 2, verse 16. It says, "To deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flatter for her words." This could also be going into false philosophies, but in this case, I'm bringing out the aspects of talking about, the wicked woman that, we got to deal with amongst our nation, in particular, so-called black woman. It says, verse 17, "Which forsaketh the God of her youth, and forgetteth the covenant of God." Right? And these women, they do forsake the God of their youth. They don't give a fuck about their children. They don't care. Whatever they do regarding, amongst being a parent, it's like they're just doing it just to get any financial benefit out of it. They're just doing it just for that welfare check. And that's like somebody that works in a company and just trying to just work there just to get paid, and not really actually caring about doing their actual duties and their roles, effectively. That's how a woman is when it's coming to having children and actually raising and guiding their children. They don't care. They'll just do it just to keep the children alive, in the process of fucking their children up mentally, and even maybe damaging them physically sometimes by abusing them, but hey, they still living and surviving because they at least still getting food. You see, this is how our women think, and they always thinking like, well, other people do worse, like you fucking bitches still want credit for, actually not killing off your kids, or at least not, putting your kids in the worst situation as other, parents have done to their kids. You know what I mean? That, at least what you did wasn't really that bad. Well, either way, you're still going to get judged for your wicked actions regardless. And continuing on, it says, "For her house inclineth unto death, and her paths unto the dead." I wouldn't be surprised at that house. Well, for having garbage 4 feet high, I mean, it's evident that house smelled like death. Like shit. She had those kids living like Edomites up in there. You know, pretty much like those shows that, I remember there was a show called Hoarders where it would show like, and it was so disturbing seeing like, let's say, like the amount of garbage and just amount of like stuff that people have in their homes, you know, just to like pretty much just to show how much they don't want to let things go. And usually a lot of women, they have that issue where they hoard things. You know, that's an issue that a lot of women have. And in this sense, these kids, since they seem like they weren't really trained on how to, I guess, keep a home, given that they most likely had a messy hoarder mother, you know, that's what I assume. Because I'm just saying, your kids are a reflection of who you are, you know, so they mostly, of course, will reflect like, you know, the father, but in a sense of, I mean, because like they're considered as the father's seed, but in a sense, whoever they've been around for the most part, whoever they grew up with for the most part, seeing the way you operate and the way you act and the way you move, your kids are going to eventually grow into that. You know, that's why they say it takes a village to raise a child. So usually if your kids grow up to be something completely different, you just better understand that they have met someone or other people in their life that they've been influenced by to actually move in a better way, even if they came from a broken family and a broken environment, you know. But sometimes you're gonna have, you know, instances where people come from messed up communities, but they didn't let it, you know, take a hold of them, that they actually broke from that cycle. And then it says in verse 19, none that go unto her return again, need to take their hold of the path of life. And I'll say a false philosophy that ties up with that is mainly feminism. You know, you going into that philosophy, you're going to follow after the ways of death. And the majority's women follow that philosophy. That's the reason why majority's women are undesirable in America, especially the so-called black woman. She's the top leading pioneer of a feminist and of an undesirable bitch. You know, an undesirable woman, otherwise known as a bitch. Because as much as you love the so-called white man, he don't love your dirty, stinking black ass. And even if you do have some so-called white men, some Edomite men that's married unto you, the Most High gonna turn their devilish spirit against you in the times to come very soon, when the Most High pretty much puts Esau in that Revelation chapter 12 verse 12 spirit, when Esau comes down with that great wrath, knowing that he hath but a short time. In Proverbs chapter 7 verse 25, it says, let not thine heart decline to her ways, go not astray in her paths, for she hath cast down many wounded, yea, many strong men have been slain by her. Her house is the way to hell, going down to the chambers of death. Right. And that's why scriptures also say that in the Apocrypha, how the you know, the father established the households and the mother rooted out foundations. Yeah, because you see, women are just, or let's just say under that feminist mindset in America, they're just known for, you know, being completely destructive and completely careless about it. And because women don't necessarily have, you know, a man to guide them or lead them the right way, that's the reason why they're going to vent their emotional trauma and their insecurities, flaws, and every negative aspect about them, you know, to their young ones. And eventually, you know, they kind of create that whole toxic, you know, mentality within their kids, and then eventually their kids is gonna do the same. And before you know it, she's passing the legacy of trauma towards her kids, and her kids are gonna follow the same cycle more than likely. So yeah, all in all, moral of the story: never ever have kids with a so-called black woman, especially in America. And for the most part, that woman does not even look attractive at all. But every man got their own taste. They say each their own. So with that, hope I made this edifying, not to give all glory, praise, and honor to Adonai, Yahweh, Bashem, Shalom, Yahweh, Shalom, Bashem, Kakadash, to my honor, so apostles, great wisdom, peace, citation, all full action, and one.